He had considerable influence over his young companions, whom he was always ready to help, and to whom the sweetness of his disposition rendered him very dear, but he cared little for the sports of childhood, in which he seldom took part. One day, when the rest of the merry band were playing in the woods, Thomas was standing apart in silent thought. The monk in charge of the boys inquired the subject of his reflections. The child raised his head and said, "Tell me, master, what is God?" This was his oft-repeated question, and it showed that the whole bent of his mind and heart was already directed heavenward. At 10 years old, he had made such progress in his studies that his parents resolved to send him, under the care of a tutor, to the newly founded University of Naples. Before doing so, however, they took him to spend some weeks with them at another of their castles at Loreto, a spot afterwards destined to become so famous as the resting place of the Holy House of Nazareth. A famine prevailed at the time, and Thomas delighted in distributing the abundant alms which his charitable parents had set aside for the poor. He carried his liberality so far that the steward of the castle complained to his father. The count waylaid the child as he was hurrying with bread to the gate and sternly asked what was hidden under his cloak. Thomas let go the folds, and there fell to the ground, not the food which he had taken, but a profusion of lovely and sweet-scented flowers. On his arrival in Naples, the extraordinary talents of which he had already given proof under his Benedictine teachers, became more and more manifest, whilst at the same time he made rapid progress in the science of the saints. He was continually held up as a model to his fellow students in a way most painful to his humility, but the modesty, sweetness, and gentleness of his character preserved him from envy, and gained for him universal affection. He shunned all occasions of evil, and devoted his leisure hours to prayer and good works. The Dominican church became one of his favorite resorts, and, as he poured forth his soul in prayer before the altar, bright rays of light were more than once seen to issue from his countenance. A holy friar, named John of St. Julian, who had witnessed the wonderful day, said to the pious youth, "God has given you to our order." Thomas threw himself on his knees, saying that he had long and ardently desired to take the habit, but that he feared he was unworthy of so great a grace. The community joyfully admitted the young student, and, whilst still almost a boy, he was publicly clothed in the white habit of Saint Dominic. The news soon reached the ears of the Countess Theodora, his mother, who, recognizing in the event the fulfillment of the holy hermit's prophecy, hastened to Naples to congratulate her son. Thomas and the brethren, however, who were ignorant of her dispositions, were much alarmed at the idea of the impending visit, and, in compliance with his own earnest entreaties, the novice was hurried off to the convent of Santa Sabina in Rome. Thither his mother followed him, but she was unable to induce him to consent to an interview. The general of the order, John the German, was on the point of for Paris and resolved to take Thomas and 3 other companions with him, and they accordingly left Rome together. When Theodora found herself thus foiled and mistrusted, she became furious against the friars, and sent orders to her 2 elder sons, who were then serving in the emperor's army in Italy, to waylay their brother and bring him back to her. The little party of friars were overtaken and seized as they were taking their midday rest by a wayside fountain. The rough soldiers tried to tear the habit from Thomas's back, but his stout resistance compelled them to give up the attempt. His companions were suffered to continue their journey, whilst the young novice was carried off to his angry parents at Roccasecca. The Countess was now determined that he should never be a Dominican, and his father, who would gladly have seen him assume the Benedictine habit, that, like one of his uncles, he might rise to the dignity of Abbot of Monte Cassino, was equally determined that he should never belong to the despised mendicant order he had embraced.